Somewhere inside of you, there is a number. That number is a ceiling, a number that your subconscious mind has decided is the limit of what someone like you is allowed to earn. And no matter how good your strategy gets, your offers, your funnels, your team, if that number sits below where you want to go, you will never get there. But today we're going to change that number. I'm not going to motivate you. I'm not going to give you a framework. Instead, we're going directly to the place where that number was set in the first place, your subconscious mind, and we're going to update it. Stay with me until the end. What happens in the next 15 minutes will work on you whether you think it will or not. That is the nature of this tool. But before we begin, I want to be clear about what you're about to experience, because most people have a completely inaccurate picture of what hypnosis actually is. Hypnosis is not sleep. It is not mind control. It is not something that happens to weak-minded people. Hypnosis is a state of focused attention in which the critical faculty of the conscious mind is bypassed, allowing direct communication with the subconscious mind. That is it. That is the entire mechanism. When you're in that state, the subconscious becomes far more receptive to new programming. Not because you are unconscious, but because the part of your mind that says, I can't believe that about myself yet, has temporarily stepped aside. Every high-level athlete who has worked with a performance psychologist has experienced a version of this. Every elite military unit that uses mental rehearsal has trained the same neurological pathway. The language may differ. The method is the same. What we're targeting today is specific, and that is your money identity. The subconscious story that defines what you believe you are worth, what you believe you are allowed to receive, how much success your nervous system can tolerate before it self-sabotages to return to familiar ground. You don't need to believe this will work for it to work. In fact, skepticism is fine. What I ask from you is only this. For the next 15 minutes, just stay, breathe, and let the process do what it is designed to do. So find a place where you can sit comfortably. You don't need to lie down. You don't need to close your eyes immediately. Just settle in. When you're ready, let's begin. You can simply sit there, just as you are, because there is really nothing you need to do right now, is there? The body already knows how to breathe. The chair already knows how to hold you. And isn't it curious how a person can be in two places at once? Here in this room with its sounds and light and ordinary details, and somewhere else, somewhere quieter at the very same time. I knew a man once, a carpenter, who spent years learning to read the grain of wood before he ever made a single cut. He said the wood already knew what it wanted to become. His only job was to listen carefully enough to find out what that was. And I've always wondered how many of us are already something that we haven't quite noticed yet. Now, a river doesn't struggle to move downhill. It doesn't motivate itself. It doesn't set an intention every morning. It simply finds the path that was always available to it. And the deeper the riverbed, the stronger and quieter and more certain that flow becomes. I wonder if some part of you can begin to feel something like that now. Not effort, but something older than effort. There is a word in Japanese, ma, for the space between things. the pause between the notes that gives the music its meaning. And in that moment, this space between the thoughts you had a moment ago and the thoughts you haven't had yet, something can happen that words are only able to point at, not contain. You might find your eyelids growing heavier, or you might find they stay exactly as they are. And either way is perfectly fine. The part of you that needs to listen is already listening. That much I do know. There was once a very old greenhouse built for a small garden decades ago. And over the years, the plants inside grew and grew. They were remarkable plants. Strong roots, healthy leaves, extraordinary, really. But after a time, the gardener noticed something curious. The tallest of them had begun to grow sideways. Not because they wanted to, nor because they were weak, only because they had reached the glass above them and hadn't yet understood that the greenhouse had a door, that it had always had a door. And I don't know where exactly a person comes to understand something like that. It might be in a moment like this one. It might happen sometime later tonight, just before sleep, when the mind drifts into that soft place where things rearrange themselves quietly. It might happen 3 days from now, in the middle of an ordinary conversation, and you'll notice something has shifted, without being entirely sure when it shifted. Every house has a story, and sometimes when a family moves out, they leave things behind. A coat on a hook, a list on the refrigerator, handwritten that was never yours. And for a while, those things just seem like part of the house. You walk past them every day without quite seeing. But there comes a morning, and you'll know the one I mean, where you look at one of those things and realize with a very quiet certainty that it was never yours to carry. That the voice that said, "This far and no further," belonged to a room you left a long time ago. A room that no longer exists except as a memory. And memories, curious things, can change their meaning. The same event, the same facts, and yet something about it sits in you. You can shift entirely once you understand what it was actually about. A map is not the territory. That's something a man in the past said, and I've always found it useful. The map can be old. It can show roads that have been closed and miss roads that have been built. And a person can travel by a very old map for years, simply because it's the one they were handed, simply because it was the only one available when they first needed one. But what happens to a traveler who glances up and discovers that the territory in front of them is nothing like the map in their hands? Some feel disoriented. Some feel unexpectedly relieved. Some feel both at once. And occasionally, there is one who smiles a quiet smile, not a dramatic smile, just a small private one, and folds the map up gently and puts it away. I don't know exactly what you'll discover in that gap between the old map and what's actually there. Only you know what the territory of you actually looks like from the inside. I only know that you have been walking a very long way, and that sometimes the thing a person needs most is simply to stop moving long enough to look up and see how far they've come. There is a phenomenon in navigation called dead reckoning, when a sailor cannot see the stars and cannot see the shore. They navigate by knowing, with complete internal certainty, where they started, how fast they have been moving, and in what direction. They don't wait for confirmation from outside. The knowing is already inside them, assembled from everything they've experienced. And I wonder what it would feel like, not in the future, but right now, in this quieter state, to simply allow yourself to notice the things you already know, not the things you've been told to doubt, the things you know the way you know how to balance on a bicycle. Not by thinking about it, but by the body's own memory of having found it. The decisions you made correctly without knowing why at the time. The moments where something in you just knew. And a person who knows those things really knows them, below the noise in the deeper register. What does that person do when a large decision appears in front of them? What does their nervous system do? I'm curious whether, as you sit there, something in you already knows the answer to that. An oak tree doesn't decide to grow. It simply expresses what it already is. And you have been building something real, something that didn't exist before you arrived. And somewhere below all the noise and pressure and constant forward motion, you are already the version of yourself the next chapter requires. Not in theory, nor as a goal. Already. In a moment, not quite yet, I'll invite you to begin to return to the room, to bring back with you not everything you've thought about, but whatever settled, whatever rearranged itself quietly while you weren't trying to make it. And as you come back, slowly, in your own time, you might notice that something feels slightly different. Or you might not notice anything particular at all. And the noticing might come later. Both of those are fine. The work has been done in the place where work of this kind always gets done. So 1, beginning to return, the body remembering the room. 2, light and sound coming forward. 3, a breath, your own pace, filling the lungs. 4, almost there. Something settled in the center of you. 5, eyes open, present, here, and carrying without effort without any performance, whatever is already yours. What you experienced is not a one-time event. The subconscious does not update itself in a single session the way you update software. It updates through repetition, through reinforcement, through consistently returning to the new identity until it becomes more familiar than the old one. What this session did is open a door. It showed your subconscious that there is a different operating system available. Your job now, in the hours and days ahead, is to act from that identity, make decisions from it, hold standards from it, speak about your work from it. Every time you do, you reinforce what was planted here today. The gap between where you are and where you're going is not a strategy gap. It was never a strategy gap. It is an identity gap. And that gap just got smaller. If this session moved something in you, I want to hear about it. So tell me in the comments what shifted, what you noticed, what you felt different. Because your experience matters, and it also matters to the next person who finds this video wondering whether this